everyone, Jim Branscombe here for the Cinematic Void vlog. Sorry if my voice sounds a little funny. I was doing some band practice for a musical project that I'm working on with my friend Nick Vance, who I do the Cinematic Void podcast with. So, you know, little hoarse at the moment, but I'm just gonna soldier through and do this vlog. And you know what? It's been a while, so I decided to do another top 10 list. And I decided to do something that's kind of like outdoorsy, summer themed. Not necessarily summer themed, it can be any time of the year, but a lot of these movies kind of have a summer vibe. And, you know, thought long and hard. I could have done, you know, summer camp slashers or beach sex comedies, but I just went with animal attack movies. So this is a list of my personal top 10 animal attack movies. With that said, these are not like, you know, some might be considered the best of the genre, but some of these are just my personal favorites. Coming in at number 10 on my top 10 animal attack movies is a Canadian production directed by Robert Clouse, who is best known for being the director of Enter the Dragon and Game of Death with Bruce Lee. This movie is from 1982. It was also produced by the legendary Hong Kong production company Golden Harvest. It is 1982's Deadly Eyes.
Population of the world is estimated to be 108 billion. 24 times the human population. Deadly Eyes.
For those who haven't seen this movie, basically some rats get into some genetically altered grain and it makes them become big and mean and killing humans. This movie is pretty wild. One thing I will say is that for all the like kind of wide shots where you see the rats running around, they were actually played by Dachshund Hounds. Yes, they put these poor Dachshund Hounds into these rat costumes and they couldn't really see and it's kind of chaotic. And, you know, if you're not into like animal cruelty stuff, this probably isn't the movie for you, but I think it's a nifty little exploitation movie from the 80s, and yeah, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Coming in at number 9 on my top 10 animal attack movie list is a little bit of a deep cut, but if you've seen it, you know how fucking ridiculous and insane it is. I am talking about 1983's Rottweiler, aka Dogs of Hell.
Rottweiler is a terrifying experience.
It's just too dangerous to continue.
The movie was produced and stars Earl Owensby, who was kind of a North Carolina exploitation producer, filmmaker, actor kind of thing. The movie is directed by Worfs Keeler, which was a filmmaker he worked with a lot. And I'm just going to say right off the fact, this movie was shot in 3D, like independently shot in 3D. I think back in 2019, American Cinematheque had presented a bunch of 3D movies on 35mm. We had to like change out our screen to a silver screen so we could actually project it. We had to put on some different lenses. And one of the movies we screened this series was Rottweiler. And it was an insane experience. Like basically, it's about these government trained Rottweilers. They're just killers that, you know, get out and, you know, run amok on this like kind of resort town. And some of the dialogue in it is kind of insane. Like, you know, there's a line in it where one of the generals like referred to the Rottweiler as been a species that's been around since the time of Christ.
Rottweilers, sir. The breed supposedly dates back to the time of Christ.
That's a curious remark.
Which I'm not sure what that has to do with anything or their viciousness, but like, if you get a chance to see this like in any form, even if it's not in 3D, definitely check it out. It's wild, it's weird. It's definitely gonna be a little bit of a slow burn exploitation pacing in the beginning, but once the Rottweilers are loose, like all hell breaks loose. Coming in at number 8, we're going from dogs to frogs. Yes, we are talking about the 1972 movie Frogs.
Today the pond, tomorrow the world.
The film stars Ray Milland, who was in a bunch of Roger Corman productions, including The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, Sam Elliott, which most of you know from like Roadhouse and The Big Lebowski, and incidentally enough, he doesn't have a mustache in this movie, which is kind of a rarity. It also stars Joan Van Ark and Adam Rourke, who some of you who are familiar with what my friend Mike Felix calls boner jams, he was Uncle Carl in The Beach Girls, one of my personal favorite 80s sex comedy, sexploitation movies. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, basically there's a kind of a birthday party, 4th of July celebration, kind of a little bit of both going on, I guess, on this remote island, and for some reason, like all the reptiles, amphibians, bugs, and birds have gone ape shit and now are attacking these people and ruining their party. It's weird that they decided just to call this frogs because, like, you know, there are frogs in the movie, but, you know, there's also snakes and gators and, you know, there's a lot of other critters fucking people up in this. So if you haven't seen Frogs, I By the time this comes out, I've just screened it at the Lost Fields 3 part of the 4th of July celebration, which, you know, I bet you on this list at some point there's going to be another movie that takes place on the 4th of July that involves animal attacks. Wiggling its way into the number 7 slot is 1976's Squirm.
Squirm.
This movie was written and directed by Jeff Lieberman, who also made the phenomenal Blue Sunshine, as well as one of the best like kind of outdoors slashers, Just Before Dawn. If you haven't seen this movie, basically an electrical storm knocks down a power line and it hits the ground and causes all these man-eating worms to come out of the ground. And you know, what does a man-eating worm do? They eat men, women, you know, anything they can eat. This is a really fun one, and I also want to recommend just check out all of Jeff's filmography. I got to do a Q&A with him many years ago for a movie he did called Satan's Little Helper. Like, he's very diverse in the kind of like genre stuff he does, and Squirm is no exception. So if you like a little kind of exploitation, killer worm, kind of southern fried horror, hey, here you go. There's Squirm. Coming in number 6 on my top 10 animal attack list is a film by a filmmaker who's no stranger to animal attack movies. And for these, I only allow myself to pick one film per filmmaker, and you know, it was tough for this one because both they're really good animal attack movies, but I went with Day of the Animals by William Girdler.
The Day of the Animals is coming, and there is no place to hide.
Girdler also directed Grizzly, which was one of the early on Jaws ripoffs. They called it like Jaws on Land or something, like Jaws with Claws, or I forget what the tagline of Grizzly is. But for those who haven't seen Day of the Animals, basically a leak in the ozone layer affects like any animal that's above 5,000 feet in the elevation or something like that. And you know, there's a group of hikers out up at 5,000 feet, and hey, they're getting attacked by mountain lions, hawks, and bears. So yes, Girdler brought in another bear in this movie, and why I kind of went Day of the Animals over Grizzly is just because there's an insane scene where Leslie Nielsen, yes, Leslie Nielsen, who most of you probably grew up seeing in the Naked Gun movies, fights a fucking bear, or wrestles it, and he's shirtless. It's insane. The movie also stars Christopher George, who was also in Grizzly, but you know, some of you probably know him from Pieces or Gates of Hell, and his wife Linda Day George, who was also in Pieces. Day of the Animals was actually the very first movie I screened for Camp Void back in 2016. We showed a very grindhousey, pink, scratched up 35mm print, and it was on a double feature with another infamous animal attack movie, which, wonder if that's gonna make the list too. Slithering into the number 5 slot on my animal attacks list is a movie that stars Oliver Reed, Klaus Kinski, Susan George, and Sterling Hayden. Of course, I'm talking about 1981's Venom.
Venom, it's waiting for you.
Basically, a group of kidnappers are trying to kidnap this kid, but this kid's like a weird reptile collector, and he gets sent the snake, but they sent him the wrong snake. He was supposed to get a non-poison snake. It actually sent him a black mamba, which is one of the most poisonous snakes known to man. Of course, it gets out, and
The snake is loose!
I know this is gonna be a bit of a spoiler, but like Susan George's character gives one of the best performances, death scenes I've ever seen. It is really incredible. Like, I think it's actually Oscar worthy. And then you got Sterling Hayden, who's like looks high as shit the whole movie. He's just like, yep, mamba. Like that's literally a line reading in the movie. I should point out, this movie is directed by Piers Haggard, who directed the incredible folk horror Blood on Satan's Claw, but he wasn't the original director. Originally, Tobe Hooper was set to direct, and I believe he started production and then got fired, probably because he had to deal with Klaus Kinski and Oliver Reed, two of the wildest fucking human beings that ever were in movies. And of course, because they're both very particular and, you know, I don't want to say crazy or anything like that, they're very strong personalities. Of course, Oliver Reed and Klaus Kinski didn't get along and created all kinds of conflict on the set. Honestly, like, that's kind of the best part of watching Venom. It's like, yeah, there's a killer snake and like that shit's cool, but like just seeing two just top tier lunatic actors going head to head in a movie is just, you know, mwah, chef's kiss. At number 4 on my animal attacks list is a movie from 1974. It is directed by the legendary Saul Bass, who's best known for the incredible title sequences he did for Alfred Hitchcock. He was also a storyboard artist, and while he directed some shorts, this film is the only feature-length film he made, and of course I'm talking about Phase 4. For this movie, it's a bunch of ants out in the desert develop super intelligence and then decide to wage war on humans. This is one of the most psychedelic, tripped out, kind of crazy, like art house, like sci-fi movies ever made. It is visually stunning. It's kind of a shame Saul didn't make any more feature-length films. I don't think this movie did well when it originally came out, but now it's a very beloved cult classic, and if you haven't seen Phase 4, definitely check it out. It's a very, very unique, weird, trippy, sci-fi, horror, art house movie, and yeah, it's my number 4 pick. I know this one might be a little bit classier than some of the things I've talked about, but sometimes you have to do a little highbrow with your lowbrow. Coming in at number 3 on my Animal Attack film list is one of the most bonkers movies just ever made, regardless that it has a killer baboon in it. I am talking about Shakma from 1990. If you haven't seen it, it's just absolutely just batshit crazy. Basically, there's a bunch of kind of students, or I don't know what they are, interns, something like that. They work at a lab and they decide after hours that they're gonna do this big role-play game experience, like a bunch of nerds or whatever. And meanwhile, there's this aggressive baboon, Shakma, who's been given this treatment to, you know, kind of calm down the aggression, but it has the exact opposite effect and makes Shakma even more fucking crazy. So of course, Shakma breaks loose and is out fucking people up. It has Amanda Wise from A Nightmare on Elm Street, as well as Roddy McDowall. It is, I don't know, man, it's, if you gotta see one killer baboon movie, it's gotta be Shakma. And I should point out that the baboon that played Shakma in the movie is actually named Typhoon and had previously appeared in David Cronenberg's The Fly as the baboon that was used in the teleportation stuff. So glad to see it, you know, the baboon made it out okay and wasn't turned into some weird mush. It got to live on, go to another lab, and just fucking kill a bunch of dumbass nerds. For number 2 on my top 10 Animal Attack list, I have a little question for you. Do you guys like to get wet, as in, you know, smoking angel dust or PCP? Well, then I got a movie for you. It is a movie called Wild Beast. It's directed by Franco Prosperi, who is best known for directing, or being one of the directors for Mondo Cane and Goodbye Uncle Tom, some of the craziest like Mondo pseudo-doc movies that have been ever made. And let's just say it, basically a water supply in a zoo gets contaminated with PCP, and gee, wonder what's gonna happen. Yes, the animals go on a PCP just berserker rage. There's a fucking tiger on a like subway, there's an elephant like at the airport, there's a like cheetah running down the street. This film was the second half of the double feature with Day of the Animals that I did for Camp Void in 2016, so it was a real crowd pleaser. Who makes better exploitation movies than Italy? No one. No one else is gonna be like, you know what we need? We need a zoo full of animals on PCP wrecking everyone's shop. Again, animal stuff, probably not for you, but if you're into adventurous, just absolute, just bonkers, batshit crazy cinema, Wild Beast is for you.
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
And for the number 1 film on my top 10 Animal Attack movie list, gotta go with the ultimate classic, which is of course 1975's Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg.
Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss.
What is there really to say? This is one of the greatest movies ever made. And, you know, I know Cinematic Void, more cult films, more like weird deep cuts, and there's plenty of them on this list, but like, you know, I'm not a fucking idiot. Jaws is top tier. Like, you know, it's a giant fucking shark fucking people up, and then you have 3 guys that have to go out in the water and try to catch it and realize that, hey, this shark might actually be smarter than them. I've screened this movie multiple times over the years, around 4th of July, usually through the American Cinematheque. Last year I did 2 shows. I did Jaws, and then I did a 10 p.m. roller coaster, and like, I just want to show you this awesome poster that Eagle Barber designed. Shout out to Eagle. Eagle designs all Void stuff, including this shirt, you know, all the merch, patches, pins, you know. Eagle is like, you know, as much as I, you know, do all the Cinematic Void stuff, all the visual and graphic design would not exist if it was for Eagle, so I don't think I acknowledge Eagle enough, but I just want to give him a special shout out. And yeah, sick ass poster. But you know, Jaws is just a movie that just works. I've rarely ever seen a screening of Jaws where like it doesn't captivate the audience and everyone gets sucked in. So that is my top 10 Animal Attack film list. Sound off the comments, tell me what you think. Is there anything on this list that you haven't seen and now you want to check out? Also, tell me what your favorites are, because this is just for fun. My list is by no means a definitive top 10, shouldn't be in like a AFI like list kind of category. This is just my personal favorites, and you know, yeah, I could do this like next week and it could be a completely different list, although I'm pretty sure Jaws would still be number 1. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and until next time, see you in the void.
Well, you son of a bitch!